stream. Just be a moment.
Oh, this is Alder Pete. Am I on?
You are on, Alder Pete. It's great to see you and hear you.
Okay, we should be good to go.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. The hour of 7 o'clock having arrived on this 17th of February, a Wednesday, I will now call to order the City of Racine Common Council. First item on the agenda is to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if I could ask everyone to join me and please rising and facing the east to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for that. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the 2nd of February. Alder Tate, I would entertain a motion at this time.
Move to approve.
So motion to approve the item. Is there a second? See a second from Alder Santiago. Although, I need to ask Phil to unmute everybody so we can hear everyone.
Working on it.
In favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And Phil, while I've got you on here for technical support, Alder Lemke needs to be moved from an attendee to a participant. If you could facilitate that, please.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda is the proclamation of COVID-19 Remembrance Day. The number of mayors across the city have been asked to participate in this event. So we are coming up on almost a year of dealing with COVID. And so mayors across the country are passing similar proclamations, which I will read into the record now. Whereas the first Monday in March has been designated as COVID-19 Victims and Survivors Memorial Day, whereas COVID-19 is an illness caused by a virus that can transmit from person to person and is spread across the world, creating a global pandemic that is having catastrophic effects on human life, our community, and our economy. Whereas to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, observance of public health orders to social distance and stay at home have created challenges for small business, workers, and schools, which are working to comply with limited resources. And whereas school districts, teachers, students, and parents are grappling with the challenges of distance learning and working to prevent any potential learning loss due to not being in person, whereas local and state governments, health departments, and public servants have taken bold actions to protect residents, support struggling local economies, and find innovative ways to provide services. And whereas in response to the rapid spread of COVID-19 and stay-at-home orders, essential workers have stepped up to provide critical services to help protect our communities and save lives, sacrificing their own health and safety. Whereas COVID-19 has had a disproportionate impact on low-income communities and communities of color, exacerbating the inequities already prevalent in our systems that we must address as a nation. Whereas the symptoms and severity of COVID-19 can vary dramatically by individuals, and the long-term health implication for survivors is largely unknown, as many survivors suffer with lingering side effects of the disease long after they no longer test positive. Whereas more than 2.4 million people worldwide and nearly 500,000 in the United States have lost their lives due to COVID-19. And in the city of Racine alone, over 100 lives have been lost to this deadly virus. And whereas each life lost to COVID-19 mattered and leaves a hole in the hearts of loved ones, family members, and surrounding community, and whereas public health guidance and policies targeted at prevention, such as social distancing, wearing a mask in public, staying at home, or meeting virtually for council meetings, has given some help to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, prevent illness, and lessen the burden on individuals and society. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the United States Conference of Mayors supports the designation of the first Monday in March as COVID-19 Memorial Day in remembrance of those who have lost their lives and in honor of those who continue to suffer from the impact of this virus. Be it further resolved that the U.S. Conference of Mayors urges cities to individually designate the first Monday in March as COVID-19 Memorial Day. Be it further resolved that the Conference of Mayors urges cities to continue taking preventative measures, such as social distancing and following public health orders, to mitigate the spread of this virus and tribute to essential workers and those who rose in service to protect the public. Be it therefore resolved, I, Corey Mason, Mayor of the City of Racine, do hereby proclaim Monday, March 1st, 2021, and the first Monday in March every year hereafter, COVID-19 Memorial Day, witnessed hereof with my signature affixed. Thank you, everyone. So the first item before we get into the committee reports is actually a presentation from Commissioner Rooney. We're going to begin to do more of these, not every council meeting, but more frequently during council meetings, where we get some sort of update, whether it's from the finance department or from public works or some other part of government, just to let the public know about a piece of city government. And it's always good as a mayor and council members to get a refresher on the functions of city government. So with that, we've asked Commissioner Rooney, who, by the way, has been doing a great job with his staff in public works, clearing our streets and trying to keep us all safe in the middle of a pretty big storm. We have asked him previously, before the storm hit, to do this presentation on sewer asset management and the stormwater utility. So with that, Phil, if you could unmute, or maybe I can unmute him at this point. If we could unmute Commissioner Rooney to give this very important presentation. Nope, I do not yet have muting authority. Oh, there you go. Commissioner Rooney, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think I unmuted myself.
Great. Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Mason and members of the Common Council for giving me some time tonight to do this presentation. So what this is going to be about is our sewer asset management system. Most of the data that we have that helps us present this information has been collected since 2004, and it's through 2018. The data lags a little bit behind until we can as-built all of our plans for construction projects, compile reports, compile data from the various things that we do. So with that, I'll move into the presentation. Next slide, Phil. So I want to talk a little bit about our budget impacts that these two systems have on the city of Racine, and what they mean insofar as is what they're providing, what they're trying to do. Both of these are codified in Chapter 98 of the Municipal Code under utilities. The sewer management system is basically taken care of through both the stormwater utility and the sanitary sewer maintenance fund. The stormwater utility is an enterprise fund. It was established in 2005. It was created at that time to address an unfunded mandate by the state of Wisconsin DNR to ensure clean stormwater discharges into waters of the state. And of course, R2 are the Root River and Lake Michigan. And that mandate required removal of percentages of total suspended solids by certain milestone dates. And in order to do that, we needed a dedicated source of operational capital funds to make that happen. Interesting to note from a budget perspective, since the stormwater utility was established in 2005, through what is budgeted through the end of 2021, the stormwater utility has removed $74 million from the city's budget where these funds used to exist. 44 million in operating costs and 30 million in borrowing now sit in the enterprise fund known as storm utility over those last 17 years. On the other hand, we have the sanitary sewer maintenance fund. That is a special revenue fund that was established in 2008. That created a segregated fund to replace aging sanitary sewer infrastructure, and primarily to keep inflow and infiltration of stormwater out of our sanitary sewer collection system. Well, why is this important? It reduces treatment costs at the wastewater treatment plant and reduces flow exceedances, and these things could lead to basement backups or bypassing into the river, which we want to minimize if at all possible. Part of establishing that fund for the sanitary sewer program was we took ownership of all the laterals in the city right of way. They used to be the property owner's responsibility right up to the connection to the main. In doing so, that was the mechanism by which we were going to charge. The fee was per active lateral. It also helped out in the budget that it reduced hundreds of thousands of dollars in the city attorney's budget for judgments and claims. A lot of situations where, they try to fix sewer pipes that were connected at the lateral, and we're trying to figure out which person's problem is it. Is it the property owner's lateral, or is it the city sewer that's caused the problem? So that eliminated quite a bit from that budget. And from 2008 through 2021, the sanitary sewer maintenance fund has removed 25 million from the city budget, and over 90% of that is really in borrowing. Next slide. So when we look at our asset management system, we need to know what we have out there. In totality, we have over 2.2 million feet of sewer pipe, nearly 16,000 structures, and has a replacement value of $605 million. Now, 225 million is what the sanitary collection system is comprised of. That doesn't include other infrastructure you may think of that is owned by the wastewater utilities, such as lift stations, force mains, and interceptors. On the stormwater side, the replacement value is 380 million, and that is just for the collection system. It doesn't include specialty city-owned infrastructure such as retention or detention ponds or best management practice devices like the English Street outfall, for example, or an underground settling tank or a bioswale. Next slide. Once we know what we have out there, we need a way to be able to ascertain what condition it's in and how much money we need to be investing in the system, either by an operation or maintenance standpoint or by capital planning. So how we do this is closed circuit televising. We've been doing that since 2004. And to date, we've spent nearly $3 million investigating all of our underground infrastructure. We use something called PACP coding. It's an assessment and certification program. It's an industry standard that codes sewer defects. So if you look at some of the images on the slide there, what we're looking for on the left are examples of structural defects. Can it be repaired? Does it need to be replaced? Does it need a liner in it? The middle image is an observation where the pipe's in good shape, but it's leaking clear water or inflow and infiltration into the sanitary sewer system. Again, we got to keep that eye out to reduce that flow at the treatment plant and lower treatment costs. And the image on the right is things we look for as well: operation and maintenance defects. In this particular image, it's roots. So we started televising in 2004. We got a little over ambitious. We thought we could get through the entire system in about 10 years. It took us about 13, but we did. Started gathering all the information on the system, and now we're rerunning through the system over about a 20-year period. We're going to try to televise 5% of the system now for the next 20 years, concentrate on those areas that haven't been addressed through previous capital improvements. Next slide. So what we've found out after we've collected all this, essentially this metadata from televising, is what are our big issues out there. Now, we have a backlog of deficiencies that exists in both systems. On the sanitary sewer side, that backlog totals about $18 million. On the storm side, it totals nearly 28. So that $45 million combined of both sewers and structures isn't really the end of the story. We do have to add in project costs. There's engineering involved, traffic control, construction management, and other contingencies that get built in. That brings both of those totals up to more around the $63 million range. On the sanitary sewer side, that means 25 million, and on the storm sewer side, about 39 million. Those do seem like big numbers, but I think what's important for the Common Council to recognize is in both of these collection systems, that only represents 10 or 11% of the system that is got deficiencies with. What does that mean? That means 90% of our system is in very, very good shape. And that's largely through what we've been doing in engineering and public works, not just the last 15 years, but for decades. We also have about $27 million need in undersized catch basin leads. These are non-structural issues. These are really small diameter inlet leads that go from the catch basins into the main trunk line that tend to clog up, and that's why you get your intersection maybe flooding. You know, they catch a lot of debris. So we try to replace those as we do road projects. Next slide, please. So what are we doing to address the backlog? Well, the big key here is trying to catch up and essentially rehabilitate our assets at least as fast as they're deteriorating. So we're kind of looking at a rolling 10-year plan to address sanitary sewer deficiencies that I've noted, about 25 million. So we're investing about 2.5 million back into the system, and about a 20-year plan to address the storm sewer deficiencies. And generally that looks around $2 million annually in the stormwater utility capital program. Now, both of these vary based on other projects that do come along. We have to make adjustments. Next slide, please. So we consider a lot of strategies. So we spend those capital dollars very wisely. Some of the work that we do is just standard, non-trenchless work. We have to open cut the street and fully replace or partially replace sewers or laterals. We have been using for quite some time trenchless technology. If you see the image on the right, that's actually College Avenue, a very important street, in a historic district. That's where actually completely slip lining that pipe with trenchless technology. We don't have to rip up the road. We insert a liner and we cure it in place. We can do that on the laterals as well. And then the image in the middle is structures. Those are a huge part of the collection system. It's how we access the collection system, how we maintain it. And we have to rebuild those completely or partially rebuild them, or we even have to adjust the manhole tops. And you can see from this photo, we look to install internal seals that help keep that inflow and infiltration out of the system. Next slide. So how do we fund all this? Well, on the stormwater side, we have the enterprise system known as the stormwater utility, and we have revenues basically through two funding sources. One is our stormwater utility fees, and the other are miscellaneous revenues we get through charges or sales of fixed assets. The stormwater fee is the big generator of funds, though. In 2021, the stormwater fee that was approved was $139.81. Of that, the base charge was $517, and the ERU, or equivalent runoff unit, was $134.64. A base charge gets charged to every property in the city of Racine. And the stormwater utility touches all properties, even tax exempts. And that really just pays for the administration of the system. Even if you have a lot that doesn't have any impervious surface on it, you're at least going to get charged on the base charge side. So what does that ERU mean? Well, the ERU is the average impervious area of a residential property, 4-family or less. So when we created the stormwater utility, back in the early 2000s, we took a sample of about 500 residential properties, digitized those, and the average amount of impervious space on a residential lot was 2,844 square feet. That became the unit for the city of Racine. So just to give you a perspective on that, the city of Racine in totality has about 50,000 ERUs in it. We've got over 3,200 acres of impervious surface. Now the city, as you all know, is very dense, very urban. We only have about 15 plus square miles. Of this, a third of the properties are contributing impervious runoff. Roadways add another 1.7 square miles of impervious surface. This really further complicates stormwater management practices because it amounts to nearly 44% of our surfaces are basically directly generating runoff from storm events, into the river and the lake, and those things carry pollutants, and that's why we need to have best management practices in place to treat stormwater runoff. Next slide, please. So what are we doing with all those funds that we're collecting from the base charge and the ERU? Well, this pie chart here shows you an example of how we're spending those funds. This year, the budget, is approaching $7 million. At the very top of that pie chart, about $250,000 goes into program management. That's the base charge. That's what we do to administer the program. If you see the red part, that's engineering and planning. It's a little over $200,000. The green area is about $150,000. That's inspection and enforcement. That's where we try to identify illicit discharges into the river, people who are, polluting, maybe they don't even know they're doing it, but we try to trace those, monitor those discharges, and take corrective actions. And we get help from the health department in that endeavor. The purple portion is these are all ERU funded areas, is DPW operations and maintenance. That's a little over $3 million. Just a few years ago, the kind of the light blue, we've included forestry O&M. That's almost 1.1 million. And what's left is the portion of the ERU that goes to capital. And that's about 2.5 million for this year. And that's capital not only for the stormwater utility, but for forestry as well. Next slide. So if you look at how we've grown the stormwater utility since we implemented back in 2005, costs have gone up. The two lines at the bottom of the graph, they might be very hard for you to see, but they represent the engineering and planning portion and then the inspection and enforcement. They remain relatively stable. We either do this in-house or we have some help from consultants, but those are the costs and that part of the ERU that remains fairly stable over time. As you can see in the white area of the white line on the graph, that's operations and maintenance. So you can see where we started back in 2005, maybe around $858,000 or something like that. We were just starting to get our feet wet and what could be charged operationally to the stormwater utility. After a few years, we learned that leaf collection was a cost that could be included. That obviously takes a lot of phosphorus, nitrogen, things like that out of the river and lake by having an active leaf management program. So that brought it up there. It remained, fairly level, but it goes up with CPI as you would think. And then if you look at the white line at about 2018, that's when we added some other costs for forestry. We were funding it at that time, I think around 85%. We ramped that up to 100% of forestry costs a year later. And we also included curb and gutter costs, which is a conveyance system for stormwater utility, and it's allowed to be in a stormwater ERU. And then the black line just represents our capital costs, so they've gone up over time. And those are just some milestone things that we do that sometimes provide little spikes in what we're trying to do every year for specialty type projects. Next slide. So if you look back at where we've been at since 2005, we have a 17-year average for all of our costs for the utility. I mean, we started way back, in 05, our BC was $3.88 and the ERU was just under $50. And you obviously know where it's at today. But I think what's important to look at is some of the percentages. So the 17-year average, and you look at where we're at last year, we're at this year, engineering and planning remains pretty consistent, and as does even detection and enforcement. I wanted to note on the operations and maintenance side, the 17-year average has been around 50%. It has gone up in 2020 and in 2021. We're doing more in maintenance. We've incorporated forestry. We've incorporated curb and gutter, so that's to be expected. And on the capital improvement side, it's gone down. Well, that's the result of two things. A bigger piece of that pie goes to O&M. A little smaller goes to capital, but we are also starting to catch up on some of those backlog of deficiencies as well. Next slide, please. And this is just a graphical representation of how the base charge, the ERU, and the total fee for a typical residential property owner has gone up over time. It's actually been very linear. I think the costs have been controlled well until, we made those decisions approved by the Common Council to include forestry and curb and gutter, and that's where the higher trajectory took off. So I wanted to make sure you understood that. Next slide. This is, I think, is a very important thing for the Common Council members to see, and even our citizens, is what are we paying for the stormwater utility, and how do we measure up against some of our peers? Well, this is a list of 7 cities that I feel are somewhat similar to seeing. There's some, they're urban in nature. They're higher population type cities. When I say urban, I mean they have urban cross sections. They have curb and gutter. These are cities that don't look like Caledonia or Mount Pleasant, say, with lots of ditches where you can effectively treat stormwater runoff. So if you look at those cities there, and then you look at their ERU size, those are the various square footages that they're using for their ERU. In that 4th column, you'll actually see what their charges are to a typical one family. Now, these charges, you can see how they start to line up with all the other charges, but to equalize them and understand how they relate to the city of Racine. The last column, what I've done there is try to equalize their rate based on 2,844 square feet, or RERU. So while you can see the city of Milwaukee's ERU and base charges, are only around $90. That's only covering 1,610 square feet. So if you had a 2,800, a property that had 2,800 square feet or a multiple thereof, you're paying, more on the average of 157.57. So I think if you look at that, how it's equalized, we actually rate 6 out of 7 here, and I don't think that's bad. A lot of these communities, in all fairness, are under different parameters than we are, particularly up in the Paper Valley area up there. Appleton and Oshkosh, they are under TMDLs enforced by the DNR, total maximum daily loads. We aren't measured by that yet. We're measured by total suspended solids. If we start getting considered for our permit in that view, we may have to do things a little more aggressive to treat stormwater. So on average, we're about a 33% lower than the average of all these communities. And I wanted to point that out. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go and switch over to the sanitary sewer maintenance fund, a little bit about the funding there and what we do with it. Again, the city has capital improvement jurisdiction over, all 29,000 laterals in the city right of way. That's what we use to generate the fee. The Common Council did approve a fee of $75 per lateral. It's going to generate $2.2 million this year for rehab and repair, and it's for main lines and laterals. And it's interesting to note of that $2.2 million, under 12% of that funds engineering, and 88% goes right back into infrastructure, sewers, lateral structures. So I think it's important. We spend 7 out of every $8 goes right back into infrastructure. We do not have the onerous maintenance that we have to do on the stormwater side with the sanitary sewer maintenance fund. We also receive about, it varies sometimes, but we're receiving $700,000 from Racine Wastewater Utility. That is generated on their quarterly bills through the surcharge fee. And that money is directed back to us so we can target inflow and infiltration reduction. Sometimes those monies are used to help pay for costs of service for, big improvements the utility's doing, costs of shared service, I should say, like Bros Park recently. I just wanted to make mention of, the lateral fees are what are funding the sanitary sewer maintenance fund. We've addressed quite a few laterals. We've addressed over 2,000 effective laterals have been identified through televising. We've replaced 370 and lined over 1,600 on various contracts. We're averaging nearly 160 laterals a year. We've also dealt with over 550 emergency lateral repairs that property owners identified, or they had their private plumbers identify. And we've done that, and that program to date has cost $4.8 million. So to fix a lateral is about $8,600 on average. We've had laterals to repair that are 4 times that much if they're difficult fixes. That equates to an emergency response by engineering about 1 every 9 or 10 days. We're responding to an emergency situation, and it's feast or famine. They come in usually times of wet weather. But I think that's important. These are bills that your constituents don't have to pay if their lateral fails in the right of way anymore. Prior to 2008, you had a $10,000 sewer failure in the road, you paid for it as a property owner. So we know that does help out a lot of property owners. So, we have raised the fee from 63 to 75. It's going to generate more money. We've addressed over 9% or almost 9% of all the laterals in the city. With more funding, we'll be able to do even more of that in future years. Next slide. So how do we actually take care of the sanitary sewer maintenance system? Well, the city essentially contracts, for the sewer maintenance through the Racine Wastewater Utility. They provide triannual cleaning of the system. That is, they clean about 1/3 of the sanitary sewer collection system every year. And they do root cutting as well. And then they visit some hotspot areas, usually twice a year. These are areas where we have fog, which is fat, oils, and grease. We have sags in our line that accumulate debris. They respond to other miscellaneous and emergency calls as needed. And then the sewer also, or the city also contracts for sewer inspection services. That's the private, CCTV work that I mentioned. When they do the CCTV work, they actually have to do light cleaning and some heavy cleaning to effectively run the camera through there and collect that metadata. So we are getting some cleaning while they're collecting pipe attribute data. And a new thing we've introduced in the last 5 years is doing something called ElectroScan, which provides a digital scan to help augment our CCTV program. Next slide. So the ElectroScan, I think, is worth mentioning. Actually, we were recognized, and I did a presentation at WEFTEC down in Chicago a few years ago. This is essentially I equate it to an MRI of the sewer, where CCTV would be more like an X-ray. It's done by running an electromagnetic field through a column of water. We piloted an area back in 2015 and then came back to it in 2016 for some post work. This area here, it's actually where the mayor lives, and it's where the previous mayor lived. We didn't pick this area because, former mayors or future mayors live there. We picked it because it's a very unique closed system that all goes into a lift station. And it's easily metered, and we can easily take measurements and metrics of our effectiveness. So what we did there is we scanned it before we did the lining, and then we've got a lot of data in that box there saying where are we getting the highest inflow rates of inflow and infiltration of clear water in the sanitary sewer system. Next slide. After lining, then we did the same exact process with ElectroScan. And you can see, based on that same legend, how much potential II got reduced by taking care of this infrastructure by doing the proper rehabilitation methods that we chose. And what we saw from the data is we reduced 75% of the inflow and infiltration in this particular area that was tributary to the lift station. We had meter data before, we had meter data afterwards. And we also verified we took care of about 93% of the defects when we did this project. Nothing is foolproof or perfect, but we got most of it. Next slide. So a sanitary sewer maintenance program, one of the big things that we're required to do is have a CMOM, which is a capacity management operation and maintenance program. All agencies had to have that done by 2016. We did complete it. It summarizes our goals, our organization, performance standards, overflow response, and various things. We completed that document on time. It's a good resource for our sewer management. We also do some annual self-auditing with it for compliance. We work with Amanda down at the Racine Wastewater Utility on that effort. The CMOM also incorporated the CCAP, which is a system evaluation and capacity assurance plan. It's a requirement. And particularly when we're being involved in a facilities plan, which we have been going through with the Racine Water or the Racine Wastewater Utility. So we'll keep updating our CMOM. We'll be looking to do that again. And we've been paying attention to the CCAP every year or every 2 years as well. Next slide, please. So kind of summarizing, sewer management and the results of that, it's basically providing effective management of our assets, and it provides some really good benefits. It updates, it completes accurate inventory of our assets. We can display that on GIS mapping with data. It's accessible to our engineering staff, to engineers from developers and whoever else needs to look at that. We know the current condition of our sewers and structures. In doing so, we can have timely application of appropriate O&M and capital funding for our budgets. We understand how much money it requires to fund that backlog of improvements, try to, again, keep up with these assets at least as quickly as they're deteriorating, addressing structural and II problems, helps us coordinate planning with paving and with the water department. We don't, just like we don't want the water department to open up a street for a water main break after we pave it. We don't want to open up a street after we pave it to fix the sewer line. So, and then it helps us again with our collection system. We get regular cleaning. Regular cleaning optimizes flows. It reduces backups, and we're being proactive. Next slide. I think that concludes the presentation. I thank you for your time. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd be glad to answer them, or I can certainly email you this presentation as well if you'd like that.
Yeah, John, I think you should assume that we should email this out to all the alders. I think it's good, solid information for people to have. We have a robust agenda ahead of us tonight, but nonetheless, I do want to ask if there are alders who might have questions for Commissioner Rooney while we have him here, as it's related to this topic, I should say. Okay, seeing none, I will thank John Rooney for his presentation. Wait, Alder Lemke, did you have a question, or were you just applauding?
Oh, no, I was just giving the thank you. I it's a lot of information that I've heard in bits and pieces before, but it's nice to have it consolidated, and I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Okay. Phil, if I could ask you to move post control over to my icon, that'd be great.
Yep. Here you go.
Thank you so much, Phil. And thank you, Commissioner Rooney, for that presentation. Very helpful. Okay, so the first item before us is the first committee report before us is the Finance and Personnel Committee. Alder Taft, do you have any items for separate consideration?
I have received no such requests.
Please proceed with your report.
Okay. Item 79-21, communication sponsored by Alder Perez on behalf of Chief Howell, requesting to appear to discuss applying for the BJA FY21 Smart Prosecution Innovative Prosecution Solutions Grant. Recommendation of the committee was to approve a fiscal note. The grant amount is $340,000 and no city match is required. The next item is item 88-21, communication sponsored by Chairman Tate, requesting authorization for the mayor and city clerk to sign an agreement with the Wisconsin Transit Capital Assistance Grant Program to fund up to 2 buses and agreeing to a reduction of future state shared revenue payments to pay for the local share. Recommendation of the Finance and Personnel Committee is to approve fiscal note up to $418,328 in reduced state shared revenue payments amortized over 10 annual installments at 0% interest will start at the year that the reimbursement occurs. That concludes my report for this evening.
Without objection, these items will be placed on the consent agenda. Moving on now to the Public Works and Services Committee report. Commissioner Alder Jones, do you have any items for separate consideration?
One item for separate consideration.
Okay, please.
083-21.
You could read the item then.
Thank you. Communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of Department of Public Works, submitting bid results for contract 2021-003 sidewalk replacement phase 1. Recommendation that the contract be awarded to Forward Contractors at the bid price of $716,507.50. They being the lowest responsible builder. Physical note funding for this work is available in the following: $664,003.50 in Art Object 40104-57515 sidewalk assessment, $52,504 in Art Object 45040-57515 sidewalks, for a total of $716,507.50.
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Alder Land to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Santiago. Any discussion on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. We basically just need to correct the contract name. Forward Equipment LLC is the formal company name of Forward Contractors. Therefore, I move to amend the name of the contractor from Forward Contractors to Forward Equipment LLC.
So motion to amend the name of the contractor, unless there are objections, we could simply do that by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to changing the name of the contract, so we have it formally correct in the motion. Seeing no objections by unanimous consent, we will make that adjustment. Any other adjustments now that we have clarified the name of the contractor from Forward Contractors to Forward Equipment LLC?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, Alder Young, you are the first vote of the evening. What we have before us is item 08321 as amended with the help of the committee chair. When the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Young,
Aye.
Alder Tate, Alder Tate,
Aye.
Alder Santiago,
Aye.
And Clerk Coolidge, I think you skipped Alder Lemke on the list there.
oh, sorry, Alder Lemke,
Aye.
all right, Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
thank you. I'm going down the list. Sorry, Alder Mikma,
Aye.
Alder Coe,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Levy,
Aye.
thank you. Going down, Alder West,
Aye.
Alder Land,
Aye.
Alder Horton, Alder Horton,
Aye.
thank you. Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
that's 15 ayes, 0 noes.
Great. All right. Alder Jones, could you please continue with your report?
Thank you. Our next item is 0082-21. Communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of Commissioner of Public Works, submitting a final plat revision for the Wisconsin DOT project ID 2703-00-02 West 6th Street Bridge replacement. It is the recommendation of the Public Works that the final plat revision for the Wisconsin DOT project West 6th Street Bridge replacement be approved, and that the Commissioner of Public Works be authorized and directed to record this plat with the Register of Deeds. Physical note, estimated Register of Deeds cost are $125 with funding available in ORG Object 45040 57545 West 6th Street Bridge. Our next item is 0084-21, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the Commissioner of Public Works, submitting a list of streets to be included in the 2021 public hearing for 2022 construction. Recommendation that a preliminary resolution be introduced for the reconstruction with Portland cement concrete paving or bituminous concrete paving for the 2022 construction season, as submitted by the Commissioner of Public Works, lists as attached. Physical note, these are accessible street projects and therefore all costs will be paid by the abutting property owners. Next item is 0086-21, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of city engineer, submitting change order number 1 to contract 2020001 2020 sanitary sewer construction, A.W. Oaks and Son, Inc. contractor. Recommendation that the change order for the 2020 sanitary sewer construction, A.W. Oaks and Son, Inc. contractor be approved in the amount of $21,650. Funding to cover the cost of this $21,650 change order is available in ORG Object 22-640-57560 sanitary sewer. My final item is 0087-21, communication sponsored by Alder Tate II on behalf of the Commission of Public Works, submitting an alley to be included in the 2021 public hearing for 2022 construction. Recommendation that a preliminary resolution be introduced for the paving of the alley bound by Meacham Street on the north, 20th Street on the south, Taylor Avenue on the west, and Kearney Avenue on the east. Physical note, this is an accessible alley project and therefore all costs would be paid by the abutting property owners. That concludes my report.
Without objection, these remaining items will be placed on the consent agenda. Moving on now to the Office of the Mayor report. Alder Tate, do you have any items for separate consideration?
Yes, so one item 0108-21, a communication sponsored by Mayor Mason, presenting the request of Alders Levy, Jones, Horton, Land, West, Taft, Pete, and Tate II, that the Common Council resolve to urge Racine Unified School District Board to continue to utilize remote learning for all students until all RUSD staff are given opportunity to be fully vaccinated before reopening buildings and returning to in-person learning. Move to approve.
Motion to approve this item. Alder Levy, would you like to second it?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Excellent. And then Alder Tate, you made the motion and you may speak to it unless you'd rather defer to Alder Levy or someone else to give the first.
I would defer to Alder Levy as she was the originator and lead sponsor on this item.
Alder Levy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, President Tate. I want to first state that for the record, I am not teaching in RUSD this year. I requested a year leave and was granted that. So this resolution does not directly impact me this year. I want to start by saying, it goes without saying that the pandemic has wreaked havoc on everyone's lives. And our children have not had a good time of it this entire year, not being back in school. Last year, kids left our classrooms mid-March, and so we're coming up on a year. So their mental health, their emotional needs, their cognitive needs really need to be paramount to all of us to ensure that they are getting what they need. And yet staff of RUSD are very concerned about what the plan is or the lack of a plan that's in place for returning to in-person learning. And so that's why I brought forward the resolution for this evening for discussion and hopefully for approval. The concern for RUSD staff is that they want to have the opportunity to get fully vaccinated before returning to in-person learning. I have personally received well over 300 emails from RUSD staff urging the Common Council to modify the Safer Racine Ordinance standards to keep Racine schools virtual until all staff have the opportunity to be fully vaccinated. Now, at this point, we know that it's not feasible for us as a Common Council to modify that ordinance. And so that's why I put forward this resolution this evening, because there are serious concerns from RUSD staff about the school district not having a comprehensive plan in place to have students and staff return to schools. The latest CDC guidelines for schools to return in-person learning are 3 areas. One is regular testing of staff and students so there can be effective contact tracing. The second is mask wearing, and the third is social distancing of having 6 feet by 6 feet. If those guidelines cannot be implemented, then having everyone vaccinated who wants to be vaccinated, specifically staff, should really be the aim before anyone returns to schools. At this point, the district does not have a plan to do regular testing, and that's problematic. Also, in many schools, it's not feasible to have social distancing in place. because of the lack of space. And I know that personally because a number of years ago, I was president of the teachers union, then REA, and I have been in every single building in this school district multiple times. And I saw firsthand the number of kids in classrooms all the way from elementary through high school. And it's not feasible in many schools to have the social distancing in place. And therefore, that's why it's so critical that we have the opportunity for staff to be vaccinated for those who want to before they return to school. You know, as city leaders, the health and safety of our residents is paramount to the work that we do. And RUSD schools, the vast majority of them are within the city limits. So we're talking about the majority of our students are coming to us into schools without the proper plan in place, and our staff are coming in very vulnerable. And so I urge folks to support this resolution this evening, because one death from COVID-19 because of returning to in-person learning is one death too many. So I urge you to support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Levy. Alder Peterson.
Yes, I'll be voting against this resolution for one of the main reasons being that we passed safer receipt ordinance. I believe a number of individuals on this council stated that the reason for doing that was to make this a non-political issue. I believe this in turn is once again making it a political issue. And also my son goes to a private school and he's been in school this whole time. So it'd be kind of hypocritical of me to say that somebody else's children should not be in school at this time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Peterson. Alder Kate the second.
Thank you. Actually, I believe Alder Perez had his hand up first, but I'll proceed since I've been recognized. I just wanted to clarify our action tonight in our resolution to take a position isn't affecting the current ordinance as it exists. We empowered our public health instructor to make those decisions, public health administrator to make those decisions, and that power still rests in her hands. So we're not taking back authority that we've given. We're not directing RUSD to do anything in particular. We're actually urging, as a fellow governing body, for the governing body of RUSD to reconsider their position in light of the constituents that we represent and the impact that this particular choice may have on the health and safety of those constituents. So I just want to clarify that piece. That, I mean, we didn't want this ever to become a political issue, but because a lot of decisions that were made above us, this became a political issue regardless. So it's still our responsibility to take the right position and to put forth the health and safety of our community before politics, for sure. And this is, I think the most that we can do at this point, given the limitations we've set upon ourselves, which were the appropriate ones to take, and to encourage courage in our partners at the school board to make the decision that's ultimately safest for not only the students, but the families that they return to and the families that teach them. So that's why I support this, because ultimately the city of Racine's numbers could have been very, very different in terms of deaths and transmission of this disease if 20-some thousand of our children have been packed into buildings for the last 12 months. Fortunately, they had not been, and we've been able to reduce our numbers to a much healthier level, but certainly not nearly beyond the ratings where they exist. I believe last I checked, we're still either in the high or very high category. And that is, I believe, something else that was in the CDC's recommendations, that before you return to school, your community spread should be such that is not in those categories. And if you do, despite that, then you better vaccinate everybody that you can. Neither of those things are the case right now. And I think it is unwise. And I think that's the position that my fellow co-sponsors are taking, that it will be unwise to take that action absent some of the standards that have been in place. And if without those standards, it's not only unwise, but it's reckless. And I think, to echo Alder Levy's point, right now, COVID-19, by taking very particular recommendations and precautions is a preventable death outcome. And by doing something when you have preventative measures in place or before the protective measures can be installed is a entirely avoidable situation and death. And I'm sure many other professions that exist in the city, whether it's DPW workers, policemen, firefighters, everybody who's absolutely essential, similar to teachers, if they could do their jobs virtually, they would absolutely be doing their jobs virtually. And I don't think it makes sense for us to remove that ability to continue to do your job virtually for reasons that don't seem to be connected to reality. That's definitely not based in the recommendations of the public health experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Tate. Alder Perez.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to say a couple of things. My wife works at a private school. They've been taking the precautions, and pretty much they've been safe. I think they've only had one incident of a family member of someone at school who got COVID. With that being said, I recently recovered from a very strong COVID infection. Spent a week in the hospital and could barely breathe. I am a special ed teacher at Racine Unified. I've been at Racine Unified for 4 years, and my team, except for maybe one person, I think, is really anxious about coming back to school because they have not yet been afforded the opportunity through the school system to be vaccinated against COVID. Now, I was in the hospital at the time they put out the survey, so I haven't been able to do it either, get vaccinated, even though I am a special ed teacher, which had priorities. I've worked at Racine Unified for 4 years, and for 6 years, I was the representative for the educational assistants at the Kenosha Education Association. A lot of the people in my building right now are just terrified, literally terrified, that the kids are going to be coming back because we don't know what the kids are doing. And even though they get their temperature taken at the door and come in through a certain door and leave at different times, and these are all kind of the plans that we're discussing building by building. They issued me 2 face masks, the kind that we wear that's blue on one side and white on the other, the simple ones, and a kit to make myself a face shield. That's all I've been issued to go back to school. And I think it's outrageous that the school is opening without giving the teachers the opportunity to get vaccinated against COVID. It is just a tragedy waiting to happen. So at what rate do we come back in the building and expect kids to come back with, they may be stronger than adults that have comorbidities, but there have been some kids that have died from this already. And, do we need to risk it? Is one life worth it? And I get it. There's a 97% something or 99 point something percent that you're going to live, but in what case you're going to live? Most of the adults that have had some kind of lingering issue that has lasted or become permanent. I'm really disappointed that even though the school district is trying to gear up and making plans, the best plans they can, with the advice from the CDC and from our local health department, I also think at this point that if the teachers aren't vaccinated, and the probability is that they will not be by the time kids are scheduled to be back in March, that there could be some major problems with the teachers and the kids, even infections that will linger. We still haven't quite figured out what classrooms we're going to be in. We want the 6 feet spaces. We know that lunch may be or may not be in the classroom. So there's a lot of things up in the air still. And I get what President Alderman Tate said, that it's a resolution. So we're just giving them a word of encouragement as a unit, saying, hey, this is what we'd like you to consider. And so it's not binding on them, but at least it expresses our thoughts and feelings on this. I am totally for this resolution, even though I understand that there's a lot of political pressure in this. After having experienced COVID and been in the hospital for a week, almost at the point where I thought I was going to die, that the safety of our teachers and our children is tantamount. And so I would vote in favor of this resolution. And even if we can put some a stronger bite on this, I'd encourage us some way or another to do that. I'd encourage the rest of you to consider that, yeah, it could be a political issue. And I understand that too, but there's also a very practical human side to all this. And we need to be concerned about people. We need to be concerned about our fellow instructors. We need to be concerned about our children. And right now, there are not enough safety precautions being implemented, nor projected to be implemented within the district. And if this resolution even causes them to delay a little bit and get some of those safety precautions in place, then it was totally worth it. So I'd encourage the rest of you to consider it along those lines and put the politics aside and say, we want our teachers to be safe. We want our children to be safe. And this is at a minimum what we can do. So I'd encourage you to vote in favor of this resolution.
Thank you, Alder Perez. Alder Meekma.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, my fellow council members. I fully realize that my position is not going to be the most popular position amongst what it sounds like the rest of you are considering, but I too am going to be voting against this resolution. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this and really trying to figure out where I felt the best stance was on this. And I hear a lot of conversation about we need to protect our children, we need to protect people. Part of my challenge in this is there's protection for the children that needs to be placed beyond just the risk of COVID-19. And the fact that our children have had limited access to essential resources that only can be provided in schools for some of these youth is incredibly concerning to me. And I certainly understand, and I don't disagree with a lot of the arguments that have been made for making this statement and putting out this resolution. But I really do have a lot of concern about the fact that we would delay giving children access to resources. We know that substance abuse is at an all-time high as a result of this pandemic. As a result of substance abuse and other factors, physical and emotional abuse is at an all-time high because of this pandemic. And we also know that a significant recipient of a lot of that hurt and pain and angst are the youth in our communities, especially youth that are living in lower income or less opportunistic parts of the community. And we know that that is detrimental, and I fear that there's been damage done to some youth in our community that is going to be irreparable. And in a lot of ways, we couldn't do anything about that. We were in a pandemic. Essential steps needed to be taken to limit the impact that that had on the greater community. But we do know that the CDC has said that, especially in younger grades, there's much less of a risk right now of the virus being an issue. I think one of the issues I have with the proposal or the resolution as is stated is that it's a very blanket statement. It covers all grades. It doesn't take into consideration the different ways that this impacts the different grade levels. If we were putting out a resolution that said grades K through 5, we supported starting to go back to school, but everybody over. I think there would be much more reason to get behind something like that. But I'm really very significantly concerned about where young people are and what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis that we cannot even imagine. When we talk about protecting our community, when we talk about protecting our young people, we have to take that into consideration. I give the example that we offer a program that talks about child abuse. We have not been able to provide that program virtually because it may trigger an incident if a child is watching that program in a home where there is abuse happening. And that child will not be able to protect themselves nor access resources after they've been educated that they may be a victim of abuse. The sooner we can get kids into an environment where they can learn and access vital services to be able to avoid more of that kind of treatment is essential. As essential as it is to stop the pandemic. I think there's a much more thoughtful approach that needs to be taken with this, both from Racine Unified's perspective and from us as community leaders. I also think it's hard for me because this is based heavily on the concept of vaccination, but the CDC has clearly said that access to vaccination should not be considered a condition of reopening schools for in-person instruction. And I think us making a statement that that should be the requirement is going against what the CDC says. I also know that earlier today, the White House COVID response team spoke and they reiterated a lot of these same statements that schools should get back as soon as and as safely as they are capable of doing. I agree with Alderman Tate. Our community is still in one of those high-risk zones, but there needs to be consideration taken for all the other high-risk environments our young people are finding themselves in. Dr. Fauci also said that it's very impractical that every school district is able to implement testing on the scale that it needs to be implemented, but it should be a priority. And I think that's sound advice, but again, to not send kids back because we're expecting testing to be holistically implemented is a difficult thing to stand on and expect everything to work out. And then my final question about all of this is, there's also going to be a significant number of teachers that opt not to get vaccinated. Does that mean that we suspend school indefinitely because there's a significant group of teachers that are opting not to get vaccinated, therefore putting everybody who has not yet been vaccinated, children specifically, children in older grades, at risk? I don't know. I don't clearly have the answers to all of those things, but those were the primary concerns that I had to weigh and consider as I made my decision and where to stand on this. I hate being in these positions because so many of you, all of you, I respect so much, and it's hard to stand opposite you when you're feeling so passionate about something. But I just wanted to certainly share my point of view and my side of this, because I think we're doing a disservice to those people we are sworn to protect if we don't take into account the impact that this has had on youth and on families outside of just the direct impact of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Riegma. Alder Perez, your hand is still up. Did you want to speak a second time or? Okay. That exhausts, I'm just looking. Oh, Alder Taft.
Thank you. So I have a couple of comments. I think I want to state that I will be voting in favor of this resolution for a number of reasons. I am myself an educator. I have small children at home. My children are in RUSD. I want to say for the record that the teachers at RUSD are amazing, and this remote learning is exceeded my expectations. I have a very energetic 8-year-old boy, and he is learning, and it's tough some days, but they're doing an excellent job. I feel that we are just so close to this, like being manageable with a combination of vaccinations and best practices. And at this time, you know, I appreciate what Alder Riegma said. There are a lot of children at risk. There's no guarantee that those at-risk children are coming back to school, because as a parent, I know that I don't have to send my child back. And some of those at-risk parents won't necessarily be sending some of those parents won't be sending their children back, at least not right away. So there's no guarantee these children are going to get the services that they need in the first place. And I don't think the resolution requires that all teachers and staff are vaccinated, just that the teachers and staff that wish to be vaccinated are vaccinated. I work at an educational institution myself at Parkside, and they have implemented bi-weekly testing for staff and faculty if you're going to be on campus once a week, and students. And there's no talk of testing, which is important, and there's no guarantee that the superintendent has said you can't guarantee what the CDC requires as a gold standard of, protection of the 6 feet of social distancing. Some classes that'll be applicable, some classes it won't. I haven't heard any plans as to how they're going to address those issues. And so there's a lot more that needs to be worked out. The plan is not well thought through. In some schools, 70% of the kids are going to be going back, like Gifford. Some schools, many fewer. It's all over the place. And if the school had a plan, like Alder Wakeman had said, about number of children and what grades, and maybe a more staggered approach. There's a little bit of a staggered approach, it's not much. Teachers are terrified. It's unfortunate in our society that schools have so much on their shoulders in terms of keeping children fed and safe and get services. But we are in a pandemic. We're still in the pandemic. It's not over, even though we're tired of it. So I'm going to be voting in support of this resolution because we are just so close to having this manageable. We just need a little more time, and I don't want us to ruin all the sacrifices we've made so far just because we're sick of this. Thank you.
Alder Tate the second.
Thank you. I just want to be clear that this isn't an either or choice either. This is an if when choice, or if then choice. Because the reality is, yes, we want, and we all know that the recommendation is children will perform better in a myriad of ways when they have socialization, when they have, group dynamics and physical contact and engagement. Like, we all know that where we want our kids to be is physically in the schools when they are safe to do so, and when they, by being there, don't create an unreasonable, unacceptable risk to the people who will be caring for them when they're there. Right now, there's a number of provisions out there to say, like, this is how you plan in order to create that scenario and create that environment. That is not the case right now. If it was, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. And the teachers wouldn't be as terrified as they are. Teachers, staff, and parents wouldn't be as scared as they are if they knew, oh, well, they'll be testing once a week or every other week. Oh, there'll be multiple masks, and oh, they'll have kids spread out to a degree where it's much more reasonable in mitigating the risks. Those things don't currently exist. And the only protection outside of having those environmental factors in place, whether that's masking, distancing, etc., is vaccination. And it's unreasonable for us to send children or adults into an environment that they don't have the best resource to protect themselves, and they don't have an environment structured enough to protect them all. And I think, hearing Alder Perez speak on this issue as, for lack of a better term, a directly impacted person by COVID, I think carries an incredible amount of weight. And quite frankly, I think at least a quarter of the council has experienced COVID at this point. And I don't think any alders are coming back and saying, you know what, I take it a second time. And I don't think we wish that on anybody, quite frankly, especially if it's an avoidable circumstance. And right now it's still an avoidable circumstance. And I don't think it's reasonable for us to kind of pit against the real needs that children have and the deficiency of the systems to meet those needs. Right now, in many ways, the schools is the system to meet those needs, but it should not be. It really doesn't do it as well as as other ways can do it, as other systems can do it. But that's where we've thrown everything into. And now, because we've put all our eggs in a singular basket of how we deal with a myriad of issues in schools, we're throwing aside, or some would attempt to throw aside, the real reality, the very real reality of a deadly disease that is not just like slowing down, like it hasn't gotten weaker, it's actually getting more virulent as different strains come forward. So this intersection of new strains coming out, vaccines on the horizon, and potentially going back to a full in-person engagement all creates this perfect storm of what we've worked for a year to avoid, particularly in the city limits. That's why we take this position, not because the youth who would best be served through the various services in person don't matter. They definitely do. And there should be a plan that addresses that in particular, but that doesn't exist. Even right now, the plan is one size fits all. Either y'all are coming back or you opt out. It's not a matter of tailoring it to there are special needs students who need to be here and their school is significantly impacted by not being physically present. Like, that's not the conversation. It doesn't matter if you've got special needs or if you demonstrate that you can manage in school outside of this place, or if you responded well to virtual, it's come back or don't come back. And that is concerning as well, because it's not as nuanced as it needs to be based on everything we've learned in the last year about this virus. I mean, we have learned so much. Our mitigation strategies in the city have changed based on what we learned. How in the world does the school come back and say, we're going back, and not have a really comprehensive and robust point-by-point strategy of how we're going to deal with this after everything we've learned? I can't, in good conscience, not stand up for anybody who's going to be put in that situation, knowing what we know and knowing what they have, and not knowing what they're supposed to do about it. That, it just seems beyond reason. So, like Alder Meekma, both have a background in, human development and, human services, and especially for me, child psychology and development. I get it. I understand. But there's never been a time where I've thought, well, this youth really needs some treatment, so let's put somebody else in harm's way in order to get it for them. Like, that's a false choice, and that's not a choice that needs to be made. And there are steps that RUSD can either take to shore up its mitigation plan, or it can be real and say, we actually got to vaccinate these teachers before we can do this, or vaccinate everybody who seeks to be vaccinated before we can do this. It doesn't have to be either or. It really needs to be both and. And until that happens, it's unreasonable to do anything otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, President Tate. Alder Horton.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will be speaking in favor of this resolution. Just hearing all the discussion, I'll just be frank and honest. I'm just a guy that, politics over people don't work for me, and profit over people don't work for me. The safety of people and the safety of students. And I understand, I worked in these schools for the last 10, 15 years, and to be out for a whole year and coming back, I don't know what strategy they might have in place, but I can tell you that strategy better be a good one. It's been a whole year that kids have been out of school. And for those that work inside of the school system, inside of the districts, they know that sometimes, even without a pandemic, it's hard to contain kids. They're kids. And so to get back to those facilities and not have something in place to keep them from, touching and social distance, and, in some of the places, we have students, everybody touch the rail as they go down the stairs. Everybody sneeze and don't cover their mouth and just put their hand on the rail and go down. So this is a situation that I've also received about 300 emails about teachers, and I also talked to counselors, and I did talk to teachers about it. And yes, they are horrified to go back into those buildings without being vaccinated. And so I'll be speaking in favor, and you heard from other alders about, the plan that's already in place. But just to let our teachers know that, we support them. I do understand what Alderman Meekman is talking about, because I do know that it's been very, very tough on the kids, and to get back, or to try to get back into the schools, we have a long hill to climb, regardless of when we get back in there. And as I recall, and you all recall, the pandemic is not over yet. And I'm very thankful that my job have said, we're going to put you guys' health first, because we've been virtually for a year in our employment, and I'm an outreach worker. And so I'm an outreach worker for Southeastern Wisconsin. So I would be terrified going to Kenosha, Walworth, shaking hands, sitting at the booth, having conversations without being vaccinated. So I'll be speaking in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Horton. Alder Taft, did you want to speak again?
Yes, I just had one additional comment that I meant to say earlier, is that I think there's a misunderstanding too of what school is going to be like. Like, this is not just going back to school as normal. These teachers are going to be tasked with teaching a classroom full of kids, half full of kids, whatever, and also teaching to children at home. And as someone who teaches online, it takes your full attention. And so there are kids coming back who their teachers are going to be trying to keep these children apart that are in the classroom. They're going to have children with behavioral problems because they've been grounded for a year, right? Like these kids are going to have behavioral issues. They're going to have needs. There's going to be disruptions. And then teachers are going to be trying to teach to the children at home. And right now, they don't have face masks. But when they go back, the teachers are going to be trying to teach online and in the classroom with face masks and face shields and trying to manage everything. And this is not like everything is going to be fine and like school going back. And so we're putting a lot on the teachers, not just in terms of their personal safety, but when colleges did this half virtual, half distance, I thought it was going to be, it wasn't the best idea. And now that we're proposing doing it without very much training, without very much support, this teaching is an art form in both, remote and in-person settings. And the learning is happening now. And so this is just an incredible burden to be putting on teachers in a myriad of ways, and it's going to lower the quality of the education that the children are getting both in the classroom and at home. So I think it's going to be ultimately detrimental in a lot of ways that nobody's really talking about or anticipating. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Taft. Any other discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, I'll have the clerk call the roll. When the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Young,
Aye.
Alder Tate,
Aye.
Alder Santiago,
Aye.
Clerk
Alder
Tulick,
Lemke.
you skipped Alder Lemke again.
I'm sorry, he must be in a different spot on my list than on yours. Alder Lemke.
Aye.
Apologies, Alder Lemke. Alder Perez.
Aye.
Alder Mikma.
No.
Alder Coe.
Aye.
Alder Peterson.
Oh.
Alder Levy.
Aye.
Alder West.
Aye.
Alder Land.
Aye.
Alder Horton.
Aye.
Alder Jones.
Aye.
Alder Taft.
Aye.
Alder Pete. It's going to be 13 ayes and 2 noes.
Thank you very much, Clerk Coolidge. President Tate II, do you have any other items for separate consideration?
I do not have any other items, or at least I received no such requests. So item 0104-21, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason, appointing Paul Warnholt as city administrator beginning on March 1st, 2021, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized and directed to execute an employment contract with Mr. Warnholt as required by City Ordinance Section 2-535. Salary has been allotted in each approved 2021 budget for this position. Congratulations, Mr. Bornholt. Welcome to the city of Racine. Looking forward to working with you. Item 0106-21, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason, appointing the following: Kevin Coey to the Due Process Board Tavern League representative for the term ending in April 2023. Sean Fox to the Harbor Commission for a term expiring in April 2024. Rick Hennig to the Harbor Commission for a term expiring April 2024. And James C. Rooney to the Harbor Commission for a term expiring April 2024. Have fun at the Harbor Commission, fellows. And that concludes the Office of the Mayor report.
Alder Perez, did you have an item for separate consideration or a question?
I just have a question about the hiring of the city administrator.
Sure, state your question.
Thank you. I'm concerned again that we didn't do a search, a public search locally or nationally. I understand that that may cost a lot of money to do, and I'm glad we didn't use that money to do a search. I've met with the gentleman and I have no personal issues with him. His experience is outstanding, and I get that. But, we require college degrees, and this gentleman did not put on his resume that he had finished any college. we require college degrees for firefighters and police officers and, someone with the highest paid position of $140,000. I think that that was the amount, or it might have been more, I'm not sure, which unfortunately Alderman Tate said was just in the budget, so that we wouldn't know exactly what that was. I think it kind of disappoints me. That's a really high paying job for someone that doesn't even have a college degree. A lot of people are challenged with going to college, getting that experience, getting that degree. And so what if what if we want to do something similar with other positions in the city, like firefighters, and say, hey, you don't need a, you don't need a college degree anymore, even though it might be state law that they have it, or police officers. Hey, they don't make that kind of money anyway, unless they're on special details. I'm kind of disappointed in this whole process. I'm not complaining about the person. From the level of experience that he has, I'm sure he will be an outstanding city administrator. But again, we're doing stuff that seems to violate our own policies. We try to be equitable. We try to hire local when we can. And I get it. City administrators a challenge to hire, but not even having a degree really puts a damper on all the other positions that require degrees. And so I'm kind of disappointed in the process. And I would hope that in the future, we would use the process that is in place for other employees as well. Do a search where everyone is involved, not just, friends of the mayor. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I know you know him from experience, and I get that, and that's a good thing. But, let's do a search. Let's, even if it's not a national search, at least advertise the job instead of making an insider job. And I think we do that, we continue to be more transparent. Unfortunately, this didn't come across as transparent at all. And even with the comments that were made, welcome aboard and everything else, because I'm pretty sure he has the support. But, we need to be transparent. If we're going to hire somebody for a position, let's at least put it out locally in the paper if we're not going to do a national search. I doubt that we could find someone as qualified as him, but that's really not the point. We do it for the labor jobs. Let's do it for the upper echelon jobs as well. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask Chief of Staff Paulo just to comment on the process that was used here in the requirements of the job. Shannon, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah, I mean, the requirements of the job, I think a degree is not required by the job, just in the job description itself. I think I had a conversation with everyone here who has had the opportunity to meet Paul about the process. We had discussed doing that search and the cost of doing that search, and and knowing what we were looking for in terms of a candidate of that quality, somebody that is from Wisconsin, that understands the Wisconsin environment. We have very unique challenges in terms of the restraints that are put on us by the legislature. Somebody that is from an urban environment that understands the challenges that come along with that, people that understand what landlocked is like, and sort of finding somebody that has good connections with the legislature and the federal government, knowing that we are trying to hopefully, when there's another stimulus bill that is passed, be able to get our fair share of resources to the city to help us get out of some of the situations that we are in. That there is not a long list of people that are probably like that in the city, in the state. As I've said to all of you, I asked and pitched to Mayor Mason, along with Vicki and Kathleen, to do a little bit of digging and research to try to find somebody that had a lot of these credentials. They're few and far between. Vicki did have some ideas and did some outreach. So did Kathleen. Ultimately, Paul was somebody I sought for advice on some other candidates that I was thinking about approaching. And after having good conversation with Paul about what we were looking for, the job was really attractive to him. And said, ultimately he said, well, what about me? I was a little bit shocked. He was the chief of staff to the mayor in the biggest city in from the state, the economic engine of the state. I was very pleased and honored that he was willing to consider us. And so I have said to almost everyone that I understand that we could have gone a different approach. I take on that responsibility, but I'm ultimately very proud that we have Paul and that he's willing to take on becoming a resident of the city of Racine and coming to work for us. So I hear everything Alderman Perez is saying. We've talked about this. Typically, it makes sense to do a search. I don't disagree with that at all. But we are where we are, and I think we wouldn't have gotten the caliber of candidate that we got any other way, Frank.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Paul. The other thing I would just mention, some of the things that Henry was asking about in terms of the terms of the employment, it is some of the benefits and wages are laid out in the attached ABM that is on your agenda here tonight. So if you want to see that data, it is all listed and attached to your agenda. Any other discussion or questions on the remainder of the report? Seeing none, the remainder of these items will be placed on the consent agenda. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Alder Tate, I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, a second by Alder Coe. We just unmute everybody briefly. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And again, congratulations to the appointments tonight, but in particular, congratulations to Paul Vornholt. Welcome to the city of Racine. We are looking forward to having you on our team. Now we move on to Common Council announcements. Announcements are limited to recognition of city residents and employees, memorials, and non-political community events. Discussions of matters related to governmental business is prohibited. Are there any announcements for this evening? Start with Alder Coe.
Our DPW department, I know we had a lot of struggles with the storm we've had, and I think they've cleaned up the roads pretty good. I know we have a little ways to go, but I just want to give them a shout out and say thanks for everything they did. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Well said, sir. Alder Perez.
Yes, also congratulations to DPW. I understand that even the garbage men were out collecting, or were out on the snowplows. So they did an amazing job. This is an unprecedented snowfall lately for us. And even though some of my roads on the west end of town weren't done till the middle of the night, apparently, they really did a good job once they got here. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Perez. Any other announcements? Okay. Seeing no further announcements at this time. Oh, is there an announcement? I'm sorry, Alder Tate the second.
Since Alder Coe and Alder Perez said something, I couldn't not say something as the son of a retired DPW worker. I know how hard DPW has been working, pretty much around the clock, with less resources than they had the last time we got this level of snow a decade ago, and without kind of the cooperation of Mother Nature to melt it in between snows. It just keeps coming. So they just keep plowing. So I ask that, they continue to stay encouraged and they get the rest when they need it, because apparently there's more coming this weekend. Why? I don't know. And also for our constituents to be patient with that, between effectively 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., they're making sure the roads that everybody uses are safe to be traveled. And then after that, when the snow stops, between 3 p.m. and 10 p.m., they're trying to get to the neighborhoods. Does that mean you're going to wake up with snow in your driveway? Probably. But that also means that when you leave your block, you're going to be on a street that's safe to travel. And if a truck has to slow down, it's not going to run you over. And that's what's most important, is the safety of everybody on those roads, especially the ones where the big vehicles are traveling across. Because if those aren't safe, nobody's safe. So please be patient. Please understand the process, and that it's very deliberate and logical and rational. But it's also not always the most convenient for us, for anybody, if you live in a residential street, because you can see this nice concrete street down the block, and you're wondering why it's not happening to you. There's a reason why, because we all have to use those main streets, and as many of us are on them, they have to be ready first before it gets back to the neighborhood. So please be patient, and please, be kind. It's a plow going by. Don't give them any gestures when they put the snow in your driveway. Just know they're doing their job to keep everybody safe as best they can. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Tate. And I guess maybe one other note on snow removal. Number one, just echoing what people said. You got people pulling double shifts, people doing an 8-hour, garbage route, and then getting right back out there and moving snow for another 8 hours. Our public workers really deserve our thanks. The other thing I would just say to the general public, getting to those side streets, it would help dramatically if everyone during the snow emergencies got their cars off the road. It's really the biggest impediment to us being able to do those neighborhood streets quickly and effectively. So please, that everyone should know that that really helps. Everyone doing their part on getting the cars off the street really helps DPW get the snow off the street that much faster. So thanks again to them and to their hard work. Seeing no further announcements, Alder West, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I think you have Alder Cole's hands.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Alder Cole.
Sorry, I just wanted to give a shout out to my grandson who's going to turn 13 years old on Saturday. So happy birthday, Caden.
All right, happy birthday. Thank you for that, Alder Cole. All right, any other announcements? Seeing none, let's try one more time. Alder West, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
There's a second? Multiple seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, everyone. Stay safe out there.
Someone say nay.